Whenever you visit a Disney park, I feel like you have to see that park's nighttime spectacular. At the Disneyland Resort, we have three main ones. We have Fantasmic, we have World of Color, and of course we have the Disneyland fireworks. As of the time I'm recording this, the Disneyland Resort is not showing Fantasmic because the dragon burned down almost a whole year ago as of now. And World of Color is currently showing the 100th anniversary iteration of the show called World of Color 1, and in my opinion, it's kind of bad, so that only leaves us with the fireworks. The Disneyland fireworks are like the OG nighttime spectacular for the Disneyland Resort, and for Disney as a whole, pretty much. Fireworks above a castle is like the icon of the entire Disney company. If you go on Disney Plus and hover over the Disney tab on the streaming service, it literally shows a castle with fireworks going off behind it. So it's a very powerful image. It represents the whole company. So it's really important for the fireworks show to actually be really good. And in my opinion, Wondrous Journeys is the best fireworks show Disneyland has ever had. Let's start things off by looking at where you should watch this show. I've seen this show way too many times, and by far my favorite place to watch this show is on Main Street. Because when you're on Main Street, you can still see the castle, which is of course the image that everyone wants to see whenever they're watching Disneyland fireworks. But when you're further back on Main Street, you don't have to show up nearly as early as the people who show up right in front of the castle. A lot of people wait like 2 to 3 hours to watch the fireworks show right in front of the castle. And in my opinion, that's a really big waste of time, because you can literally show up 20 to 30 minutes before showtime and get a great spot on Main Street where you can still see the castle and you have projections on the buildings on Main Street. So you have that dynamic, and you save a ton of time that you can dedicate to literally 3 or 4 major attractions. You can also watch the show from Galaxy's Edge, but you can really watch any fireworks show from Galaxy's Edge because Galaxy's Edge doesn't have the music any of the show elements. It's literally just the fireworks. But the appealing thing about Galaxy's Edge is that you're really close to the fireworks, so when they go off you can like feel the explosion in your chest because you're just so close to them. When Disneyland is running a fireworks show as good as Wondrous Journeys, you should not watch it from Galaxy's Edge. You should actually be on Main Street or somewhere else where you can hear the music and see what's like actually happening in terms of the show and its story. But like if Disney's running one of their weaker shows, like in my opinion Mickey's Mixed Magic and the holiday fireworks are pretty bad, so if you visit the park when they're running one of those shows, watching them from Galaxy's Edge is not bad. You also have Small World, which has a similar appeal to Galaxy's Edge because you're really close to the fireworks. But they actually do the projections and the music and the story on the Small World facade, so that's also a really good option if you want to be close to the fireworks, have less crowds than Main Street, and want the story and the music and everything that goes with it. Disney also has a viewing area along the rivers of America. From my experience, this one is by far the least crowded, like consistently. So if you don't care to watch the castle and you want the music, the fireworks, you want the full experience, I feel like this is the best option for you. It's almost always relatively empty. That being said, though, there is no Fantasmic right now. So once Fantasmic rolls back around, a lot of people watch the first Fantasmic show and then just stay in the same spot to watch the fireworks. So when they're running Fantasmic, that won't really be the case. It'll probably be a little difficult to grab a spot. As I mentioned, I'm not the biggest fireworks fan. I'm very much a Fantasmic and World of Color person. So whenever Disney announces a new fireworks show, I just kind of like shrug. I'm like, okay, whatever. And when Wondrous Journeys was announced as the 100th anniversary fireworks show, I didn't realize that it would be following the timeline of Disney Animation, which makes sense because that was like the first division of the Disney company. So it follows the history of the animation studio from Snow White to whatever the most recent film is. Disney Wish. That's their newest one, huh? I didn't see it. No one did. It's okay. Anyway, my first reaction was kind of negative because the show is called Wondrous Journeys, and For whatever reason, for the 100th anniversary, Disney put a really strong emphasis on wonder. That was like the word that they used to describe the anniversary celebration, like 100 years of wonder. And that really doesn't make any sense to me because, like, the whole thing, a lot of Disney's appeal lies with magic, you know, Disney magic. So I don't know why they use wonder to celebrate the 100th anniversary. Like, in my opinion, it should have been Disney magic, you know, 100 years of magic. That just sounds right. That makes more sense. So I don't know why they shifted from magic to wonder. That seems like a downgrade to me. But now that I've seen the show, that I don't really care. They did a great job. So it just kind of feels like a nitpick to me. Like, a lot of the appeal of Disneyland is that it's magical, you know, it's a fantasy. It's something special that you don't see every day, you know? Like, wondering is a real thing that you do on a daily basis. Like, right now, I'm wondering why they chose wonder over magic to celebrate the 100th anniversary of a company that promotes magic. Let's dig into this show. So, a lot of Disney's fireworks shows have a really great intro, and this one is no exception. I feel like the music for this show is very well done, and we're going to talk about the music a lot. I love how the show starts out with like hand-drawn sketches of Mickey projected on the castle and on Main Street. Those are very well done. It's literally how Walt Disney Animation started. And then when the music kicks in, you hear the actual theme for the entire show. And I think it's very catchy. It's very well done. I love the music. This brings me to one of the first major pros of Wondrous Journeys. And I feel like that the fireworks that like shoot off the castle and most of the fireworks in general with the shows have really great timing. They created music and they picked music from movies that have a really strong beat and they timed the fireworks up with the music beautifully. So it's just very impactful. And I feel like the first major example of that is when the intro music kicks in. It's the magic that we call out. It's the stardust that lights your eyes. It's just very well done and it's very exciting. And it's a lot better than a lot of other shows that Disneyland has for their fireworks. After the intro, we move on to the Snow White sequence, which makes perfect sense because it was the first full-length animated feature created by Walt Disney Animation. This really starts to outline the trend of this show. It follows the timeline of Walt Disney Animation. So we start with Mickey being hand-drawn, then we go to Snow White, and then we're going to work through the Disney catalog. So the next sequence, which we're going to dig into in a second, is basically the I Want sequence. It really highlights the Renaissance films of Disney animation. And as we get closer and closer to the end of the show, we get more and more recent films. The Immortals sequence is another standout sequence. That's obviously based on Big Hero 6. And Wreck-It Ralph is included. And I think Raya and the Last Dragon is also in that sequence. And then when we get towards the end of the show, right before the finale, Encanto, which is obviously one of the most recent films because it came out during the pandemic. So I really love that it has that consistency. It follows the timeline, which is like the whole point of the show is the 100th anniversary. So highlighting the progression of how the studio evolved, I think that's really well done, and it sticks to it. With a couple of exceptions, like Moana shows up really early in the show, but she also shows up towards the end of the show, so it's fine. Lion King is also pretty late in the show. It only shows up briefly at a couple of points. I also like how Princess and the Frog has its own sequence because it's literally the last 2D animation film that Walt Disney Animation produced. So I feel like that's a really important milestone in the company's history. So I'm glad that movie got its own sequence. So I just think it's brilliant. They did a great job following the timeline. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because the next sequence I want to talk about is right after the Snow White sequence and the Pinocchio Blue Fairy sequence, which is fine. It's the I Want sequence. So this is a mashup between 4 different I Want songs between some really good movies. We have Quasimodo from Hunchback of Notre Dame. We have Belle from Beauty and the Beast. We have Hercules from Hercules. And we also have Moana. So this is what I was talking about. Moana is the only character in this group who isn't from a Renaissance film. But it doesn't bother me that much because all 4 of these characters have I Want songs in their movies. And they did such a great job with the music in this sequence. They basically mashed together all 4 of these songs, and it works so well. It sounds so amazing. It's by far the best sequence in this show. It is so well done. If you didn't get to see Wondrous Journeys while it was here, you should go back and watch this sequence on YouTube, because holy cow, it's incredible. Like, the music is just absolutely phenomenal. And this is another sequence where the timing with some of the fireworks works really well. Like, there's one point in the sequence where Moana like runs across the bottom of the castle and fireworks shoot off behind her, so it's like she's lighting the fireworks as she's running across the castle. That's just so perfect. That's very well done. We also get some butterfly imagery in this show. One of the most prominent inclusions of that occurs during this sequence. We're going to talk about butterflies as we reach the end of the show, so just keep that in your mind. But this sequence is just so well done, and the ending is so powerful that it kind of feels like the grand finale of the show, because they blow a hole in the sky like at this point in the show, which is just absolutely incredible. Like, I watched the show in multiple different crowds, and there have been groups of people that are like, oh wow, this is the end, you know, because it's such a great sequence, the music is powerful, and they have so many fireworks at the ending. So it kind of feels like a point of finality, but the show's just getting started pretty much, so. The sequence is just so good. It's so incredible. I can't express that enough. I also like how the sequence ends with the 4 protagonists on the castle together. That's really cool. That's very well done. After that, we have a couple sequences that are less good. I talked about the Princess and the Frog scene. We also get a brief Frozen scene that kind of feels shoved in for no reason. It's an instrumental cover of For the First Time and Forever, which works fine. It could have been much more heavy-handed. My favorite example of that is how Disneyland Forever ends with Let It Go, even though Let It Go has nothing to do with Disneyland. And it also doesn't make any sense to have Let It Go as the finale song for Disneyland Forever. That's a whole other rant that we can get into in a few moments. Anyway, after that, we have the Big Hero 6 scene with Baymax flying above the castle. They use the Immortals song from the movie in this sequence, and that really hits me from a nostalgia perspective, you know, Fall Out Boy. I kind of wish they used the Fall Out Boy cover or original song. They use a cover of it instead, which, I mean, We can be immortals, but not for long, This sequence is also a very strong highlight. I think it's really well done. One criticism I have of this is the fact that they have some of the characters show up on the castle and they like freeze, or like, this is supposed to be like the climax of the show. Instead of like showing the characters like struggling or like losing or something, they like freeze on the castle. It's really awkward. World of Color 1 does this too, which is part of the reason why I really don't like that show. So it's kind of weird that it shows up in this show just for a brief moment. Like, I don't like that. Like, I don't want to look at a frozen picture of a character, you know, like, what does that communicate to the guest? I don't think it's not that smart. It's not that well done. But other than that, this sequence is great. It also ends with pretty much the death of Baymax, which is supposed to be really sad. But the thing is, not everyone pays attention to the projections. Not everyone is locked in. No one. So sometimes you'll see Baymax floating in the void at the end of the sequence, which is terrifying, by the way. Floating into a void, that's awful. Sometimes you'll hear guests like clapping and cheering or whatever. Like they don't understand that this is supposed to be sad, because there's a brief moment where after Baymax floats out where it's just like quiet before like the sad piano music kicks in, and then the next sequence gets starting with Zootopia, which is perfect because once again Zootopia came after Big Hero 6, so this fits the timeline really well. And through this sequence, it's like characters picking themselves back up. We have Moana again, and this is where Lion King is included. So I feel like if Moana and Lion King swapped, maybe have Can't Wait to Be King in the I Want sequence and keep Moana in this part of the show, it would be a little more organized and a little more clean, but that's totally a nitpick. Also, when I look back at the I Want sequence, How Far I'll Go is a very strong, that song is pretty much the foundation for that entire sequence. So I feel like it was a musical decision instead of a timeline decision, and I would make that sacrifice 10 times out of 10, because that, as I talked about, that sequence is wonderful. It is perfect. It's genius. It's so well done. So if this is the price we have to pay for that, then so be it. Because I Just Can't Wait to Be King and How Far I'll Go are very different songs. So I'm not sure if you swap them out, it would drastically change the I Want sequence, which once again is one of my favorite parts of like any Disney show ever. It's so well done. I can't stress that enough. The next sequence is based on Encanto, and here's where butterflies come back into play. So butterflies come full circle. It's a very strong image throughout the show. It's always in the projections. And I didn't even know this until recently. I don't speak Spanish, but the Encanto song talks about butterflies, so it comes full circles. It's very well done. That's perfect, you know? And then from Encanto, you basically go straight into the finale. And just like the intro, the finale is often the strongest part of any fireworks show. And Wondrous Journeys is no exception. So the finale is very well done. You get the theme again. And it's just great. It's very well done. Again, if you didn't get to watch the show, you should totally watch the finale sequence in full. You should watch the whole show in one viewing, but you know, the I Want sequence and the finale are definitely two of the strongest parts. The 4 key sequences in the show are the intro, the I Want sequence, the Immortal sequence, and the conclusion, the outro. All 4 of them are elite. They're super well done. And they combine for Wondrous Journeys, which is one of my favorite fireworks shows Disney has ever done. Probably my favorite. Now that we went through all of the highlights of the show, we're going to look back and see what the show does really well. A lot of fireworks shows kind of feel like a greatest hits reel. As I talked about, Disneyland Forever ends with Let It Go. The only reason that is the case is because Let It Go is beyond popular. It took over the world in the 2010s. But if you look at the song from a story perspective, it's about Elsa like running away from her problems, and that happens towards the beginning of the movie. So having it as the finale for a fireworks show makes no sense. And here is the great thing about Wondrous Journeys, is that it tells a story. It follows like a hero's journey. Like, it doesn't insert characters because they're popular. It inserts characters at the appropriate moment in their story to reflect the overall story of the show. It's absolutely brilliant, and I wish that more fireworks shows did this. And I hope, because this is the newest fireworks show that Disney has done, I'm optimistic that future fireworks shows are going to follow this formula. Because I talked about the I Want sequence at length, and obviously that represents the characters' like inciting incident, you know, like what they want out of their story. For the First Time in Forever sequence, it kind of represents like crossing the threshold, because in the Frozen movie, opening the gates like sets the story in motion, you know? When we get to the Immortal sequence, it's like it's the climax of the show. It's the major setback. Then right after the Immortal sequence, after Baymax is floating in the air, it's like the falling action of the story, where the characters are picking themselves back up again. You really see that with Judy from Zootopia and Moana. And then Encanto is like the finale, you know, like you put everything back together. So it's very well done. It's perfect. And it's pretty much the exact opposite of Disneyland Forever, which ends with Let It Go. I also talked about the timeline at length. We pretty much end with Encanto and we start with Snow White. Another aspect of that is when the show first starts, right before the music kicks in, we're in like black and white and hand drawing. When the music kicks in, we switch to color, which is also a very important moment in Disney history. So I like that it starts with black and white and then we go to color. So perfect. Very well done. I also talked about how the music has beats and moments that are timed perfectly with fireworks, which makes their impact so much more prominent. There are multiple moments where the castle fireworks works beautifully with the music. A few of those moments are when the first song kicks in, the I Want sequence where Moana is running, I mentioned that. Tiana's sequence, the Princess and the Frog scene, that also has a couple great moments. The Encanto song at the very end. The Immortal sequence. And the finale right before Winnie the Pooh and right after Winnie the Pooh.
And so we come to the end of this chapter.
Oh no, please, can't we go back to page 1 and do it all over again?
But Pooh, it's just another turn of the page. And I, for one, think what comes next will be wondrous.
I also love how it ends with Winnie the Pooh. That's such a heartwarming moment. I love Winnie the Pooh. That was great. And it's one of those moments that just makes you really emotional, especially if you're a Disney fan. So I just think it's very well done. Also, if you look back at the Winnie the Pooh moment, it ends with "When you wish upon a star." Like, that musical quote is under his dialogue, and I think that's brilliant. That's really well done.
The turn of the page. And I, for one, think what comes next will be wondrous.
That kind of ties back to the beginning of the show with the Blue Fairy. When you wish upon a star.
When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true.
It's just perfect. Coming full circle is an element that this show does really well. And I feel like that's a major component of storytelling, you know? Coming full circle is very satisfying for an audience. I already talked about the butterflies. They come full circle. When you wish upon a star, that comes full circle. One thing I didn't mention is how early in the show, Disney uses these sparklers to like represent a shooting star. And usually they go together. But two at the same time. But in Wondrous Journeys, at the beginning of the show, we do one at a time, so they come down individually. And when we get to Encanto towards the end of the show, where the characters are resolving their problems and the story is coming to an end, they go off together, and that's just so satisfying. Oh my gosh, it's brilliant. I love that. That's so smart.
Nothing could ever be broken that we can't fix together.
And really, that's a major strength of this show as a whole. Throughout the entire show, I feel like the fireworks perfectly reflect the emotions of each sequence. They don't overstay their welcome, and they're used sparingly when appropriate, which really makes their impact so much stronger. On top of that, Wondrous Journeys uses projections far more effectively than any other fireworks show. A couple of my favorite examples are Tiana's sequence. There's a really cool tree transition, which works really well on Main Street. And I gotta mention Moana again. That's just a really cool integration of projections and fireworks. Another example of the show coming full circle is the fact that the show begins with the sorcerer conducting the fireworks, and it ends with Sorcerer Mickey conducting the fireworks. Which is just like Fantasmic. It's pretty much a Fantasmic reference, so I love Fantasmic, so I love that. That's genius. It's really well thought out, and I feel like they put so much attention to detail in this show, and it pays off so well. It's on another level. Wondrous Journeys is absolutely incredible. And to top it all off, at the finale of the show is unreal. I mentioned how the I Want sequence feels like a finale because they blow off so many fireworks, but at the real finale, it feels like there's like twice as many fireworks. They make it daylight. It's so bright. It's incredible. So the finale is just unreal. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, I love Wondrous Journey. They had it from January to September of 2023 for the 100th anniversary season, and they brought it back for spring break of 2024, and it is now gone. So I really hope Disney brings back this show, and I'm really baffled why World of Color 1 outlasted Wondrous Journeys, because Paradise Bay is still showing World of Color 1, even though I really miss the OG World of Color. If I had it my way, I would do a switcheroo. Make sure you share this video, like, and comment so that we can get as many Wondrous Journeys supporters as possible. So hopefully Disney will bring back the show someday, because it's just absolutely incredible. It's by far the best fireworks show I've ever seen at a Disney park. I have not seen Happily Ever After at Magic Kingdom. I was actually there in 2023 while they were showing Happily Ever After. But I was riding Seven Dwarfs Mine Train during the show instead of watching the show, so hopefully some other time I would love to watch that show, because I've heard a lot of great things about Happily Ever After. But as for Wondrous Journeys, it's just on another level, and I really, really hope that Disney brings this show back on a regular basis, because it's on another level. It's incredible. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.